Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we have a special guest speaker, Dr. Shelley Schwartz.
And we're going to be talking about channeling our emotions through this very dark time.
Welcome to the Mommy Life Squad podcast, where we talk about
Everything women want to hear about,
which may get controversial,
but definitely inspirational, so stay tuned.
Hey everyone, so today we have Dr. Shelley Schwartz, a wife, a mother, and Eved Hashem. She lives in LA and went to UCLA where she now works. Shelley, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you grew up.
So I grew up in Los Angeles, very connected to Judaism, not shomer mitzvos. And I went to public school for high school and then college and then medical school. And now I work as a doctor here in Los Angeles. I have children in the Jewish school system, and now I'm shomer mitzvos, and I'm so excited to talk to you.
Yeah, beautiful. And how did we find Shelley? So actually, I'm on a chat with Dr. Shelley Schwartz, and you sent a very powerful voice note that I was like, wow, I got to tap into this, because you're obviously a very educated physician. I know that you know about like the world news and everything like that. I've heard about you from numerous sources all over. And for you to stop and say, like, ladies, hold on a second. Let's regroup and understand what our focus, what our shift should be. And if you want to, like, re-say the whole voice note that you had on Yishmael that I thought was so profound, go ahead, tell us a little bit about it.
So I've been thinking, as I'm sure we all have, a lot about this conflict and what can we do? Mm-hmm. I heard a number of things that, everyone is called, the reservists were called up, 380,000 reservists were called up, and each of them had to find their unit and their gear and their stuff. But really, I felt like we're all on the front lines of this battle. And even though I'm in Los Angeles and I'm home with my children, or I'm working, or both, we're all on the front lines of this battle. So we all have to find our unit. And I felt like for me, I had heard various different things about, the Geula and Mashiach and Yishmael and the fight with Amalek, but I couldn't quite figure out how that related to me personally. What could I do for Klal Yisrael here in Los Angeles? Obviously, I could donate money, I could send cards, I could send equipment, I could do things, but none of that felt meaningful enough. Mm-hmm. And there's so many people doing that. So what makes me different than all of the other people that are donating money and cards and time and things? And again, I don't want to say those are not important. They are critically important, and Klal Yisrael needs those chasadim. Mm-hmm. But I was looking for what was relevant to me. And so I was thinking about this idea of Yishmael. Who are the Yishmaelim? Why was Yishmael named Yishmael? It's because Hashem heard his cries when Avram sent him out. And so I actually, my roommate in college was Muslim. She was from Bangladesh. She was Indian Muslim.
You actually lived with her. She was your actual roommate.
She was my roommate for a full year. Wow. But she was Indian. She was not Arab Muslim. She was Indian Muslim. Whatever, we could talk about that. But I remember it was incredible. Like at any moment, 5 times a day, especially during the month of Ramadan, they would just like take out their rug and put it down on the floor and pray. And I was actually in the hospital a couple of months ago, and I was sitting in like a quiet room. They have these like serenity spaces for doctors after COVID. And I was sitting there, reading and just kind of regrouping before I went to see my next patient. And this lady walks in and she's like, do you mind if I pray? And it was the middle of the afternoon. She takes out her rug, she points it in whatever direction they pointed in, and she just started praying. And I was sitting there like on the couch next to her. Mm-hmm. There was no embarrassment. There was no fear. There was no apology. Wow. There was no shame. And I was like, hold on. Wow. And so then when this war started and I was thinking of this concept of Yishmael, I'm like, wait a minute. Why don't we, as Jewish women, as Jewish people, as Jews, have that?
A lot of times I'm embarrassed to even like daven Shemona Esrei.
At the airport, when my husband goes up and he like wears his prayer, I'm like, oh my gosh, can you hide? And he's like so proud to do it, but I'm always embarrassed. Like, what are people? First of all, I get nervous that people think he's like a terrorist, like holding his like shawl and like hiding under there, or
with
even
the tefillin when they wrap it
on their head, like what's going on? But that's so interesting that we're learning from them how they have so much pride with what they do.
Yeah. Even if they don't have pride, they just don't care. Yeah. They just don't care. And so I felt like as women, we have this power of tefillah. Wow. And especially as women, I know for myself, I don't have, it's a mitzvah sheyesh b'zman grama. It's a mitzvah that's time bound, so I'm not obligated in Shemona Esrei. It's a mitzvah. I don't have to go to a minyan because I'm a woman. I can just talk to Hashem. I don't actually have to stand and say a Shemona Esrei.
Right.
I can be yotzi with just, I can fulfill my obligation with just brachos in the morning. Like, we're finding all the excuses, or rather, I should say, I'm finding all of the excuses to not daven. And I was actually reading I like to read halacha books, something I do in my pastime. So months ago, in the beginning of the summer, I was reading, and it said in the footnotes, a woman really should, if she's not busy, if she can, she should say 2 Shemona Esreis a day. And I was like, close the book. We're going to put that on the shelf. Let's pretend we didn't read that.
Yeah.
I didn't read that. I don't know anymore.
I never heard that.
Right.
So
don't know
this idea that like Yishmael just stops. So I realized that really our fight is to battle that idea. And in order for Hashem to hear us, we have to pray. And so that's really what I said in the voice note, and that's really how I feel. Like, and it's been, even since I sent it, it's been hard for me to, sometimes find the kayach, the effort, the energy to pray.
And to apply it, right?
And to
Also,
apply
like,
it.
I feel like we were talking about this also before a little bit, but like, not everyone feels like they connect through tefillah. So do you have advice on that, suggestions?
For sure.
Because like, it's hard for some people to just pick up a Tehillim and read it and feel connected.
Yes. Yes. I was telling my children in the summer that Tehillim to me for many, 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 many months, years, was a Kriya exercise. I would, if I opened a Tehillim, and I would say the Tehillim if something happened and someone said, can you join to this? But like, I would never sign up for Tehillim chats. Like, can you say, if I would like cringe in the corner if I was in a group, or like if I'd go someplace to shir and they'd have the books, I'd take the book and I'd read it and I'd say Tehillim, but like, it was not something that resonated at all. So totally, if Tehillim doesn't resonate, there's Shemona Esrei, there's prayers in English, there's English prayers of gratitude. Sometimes it's just literally taking the moment to just talk to Hashem, but like in a quiet space, like with intention. So if formalized tefillah doesn't work for people, then just to talk to God with intention. I think start with that. Start with creating the relationship. Because again, I think the idea that Hashem hears is about having a relationship with Hashem.
Right.
And if that doesn't work, there's so many other things that as women we can do.
What you did that made you feel more connected to Tehillim?
Yeah. So what did I do? So it changed about a year ago, really 9 months ago. I had 2 very close friends whose children were going through very difficult matzavs in health. Baruch Hashem, they're both fine now. And I felt like, what could I do for them? Obviously I could help them as a physician, and I did. I could help them as a friend, and I did. I could make meals for them, and cooking is not my thing, but I did that anyways. So, but what could I do really for them? Like that wasn't, all of those things are helpful on a physical level. And I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to say Tehillim for them. That's what we've learned from our Masorah and from all of the like grandmothers and great grandmothers and Sephardim especially. Like I remember probably, I don't think I was even married yet. I was sitting in Nagila Pizza. I was already like shomer many mitzvos. I was dressing tznius, laying shops and these things. And I remember seeing these Sephardi women in the corner in pants and in whatever. And they, like, I think they said, like, at the end, they got up and said, yes, we did it. And I'm like, what did you do? They said Sefer Tehillim, I think 4 times while they were sitting in Nagila Pizza.
Wow.
And I was like, just between, I don't know, it was a nice sized group. And I'm like, you can't, different people have different mitzvos that they resonate with. And we can't ever judge, like, the power of one. So for me, a lot of it was just saying it. And once you start saying the words and hearing the words and understanding the words and slowing down, that it wasn't about like finishing a kapitz of Tehillim, like it wasn't about taking the day. It was about just saying it. So sometimes I would put on I'm going to say Tehillim for 2 minutes. If I finished the parak, fine. If I didn't finish the parak, also fine.
Right.
And then just to realize that like these are words from David HaMelech that like have supernatural power. Like I don't want to say it's magic, but like we don't know. I mean, Chazal say we don't know the power of Tehillim. The third Lubavitcher Rebbe said like if people understood the power of the Tehillim that they would say it so much more. So we just don't know.
Right.
Wow. And something that I keep hearing over and over again is that, and I think you tapped into this in the voice note as well, is that we're really all standing on the front lines. Like they might be physically standing, all the soldiers that we're fighting for and crying for and praying for, but we have this spiritual battle too. And
I mean, for me personally, like I feel like it's so hard being here in the U.S. and I feel like a lot of people can relate to this. Like we see videos in Israel, like they're packing stuff and they're helping on the they're in the army even though I don't know necessarily if I was in Israel I'd join the IDF, but I would want to like be involved somehow. And here you feel like you can't.
You feel limited,
right?
But that's the whole podcast now.
I think that's where we have to realize that like for every tefillah we say, we are sending them a physical shield against the bullets from the terrorists. We are literally, it's like the Navi said, I think Navi Yoshua, when we were fighting Amalek the first time, I've heard this a few times, but I heard it again yesterday and it really resonated. When we're fighting Amalek, Yehoshua went down with the army and Moshe was holding up his arms. And when his arms were up, we won. And when his arms were down, we lost. And what was he doing? That's the kayach of tefillah. And we need both. We're not in the IDF. I personally would not ever be in the IDF, as a female, even if I made Aliyah, I wouldn't be. I actually looked into it. Like if I made Aliyah at this point, I would not be recruited, maybe as a doctor, but and we have to realize that every tefillah, every mitzvah, every time, let's say we make a bracha even, and we say, I'm doing this as a shmira for the Chayalim, for Klal Yisrael, that is a connection to Hashem.
Right.
Like, we're doing it as a connection to Klal Yisrael, the Achdus, but also as a connection to Hashem. And I fully believe we're on the front lines. I feel physically like we're on the front lines. I feel drained. I don't know about you.
Right. Don't you feel like sometimes the Chayalim are giving us chizuk, like by watching their videos? And it's like, we should be giving them chizuk. They're going to war and they're giving us, like, they're telling us to just daven. Like, that's one of their main messages. They're like, what you can do for us, daven. Right. Like, we're going physically, just daven for us. Because we may not, like, a chayal came on WhatsApp. Everyone's probably seen this, but he's like, I can't daven Kabbalah Shabbat this week. Do it for me. Sing, dance, like, do it for me because I probably can't. Right. And I think that like taps into your message of like every tefillah is so important.
And I think also with b'simcha, what is that? How does it go?
Yivdu et Hashem
b'simcha. Yeah. Like I think that when I saw a video of the Chayalim dancing, and they were dancing to Yivdu et Hashem b'simcha, and I'm like,
how? Right.
If they're dancing b'simcha, who am I to be sitting here depressed in my living room that there's a war in Eretz Yisrael? Like,
wow. So last week I feel like I couldn't even think straight. And then this week I'm like, it has to change. I can't be in this mindset of like not being able to think straight.
So that's going to bring us to the next part of our podcast. I think this is what you're
No.
Okay, no.
But then today I was last night I'm like, you know what, this has to change. My kids have to see, like, even though we're in this time and it's a hard time and it's a struggle, but we need to be happy and we have to trust in Hashem. A functional mom. Put music on, just started dancing, all of us. And my kids were like just so happy. They're like,
right. I thought you were going to say that like our phone is such a distraction. What do you want to say about that? Because all these videos, I don't know, you're probably a busy doctor, so you probably don't even have time to like tap into these videos. But like, I'm not even on so many chats. Like I'm literally on like just a few, like 2-3 chats, and I'm still getting bombarded with messages and updates and like statuses that I've seen, and I'm like, oh my gosh, enough is enough. How much can we see? Even if it's good content, I'm not talking about anything inappropriate. Baruch Hashem, Tiff and I have been really careful about what we've seen.
I went off of Instagram. I archived a whole bunch of groups. I'm like, I cannot. It just it affects you.
Yeah, really. We're not even talking about, again, not the graphics.
So I think the graph. I think it's very, 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 very important to guard our eyes. We talk about Shmiras Einayim in the world, but I think especially now. I'm sure you've seen that Rabbi Ali Mansour, he talked about the Amora who said, like, I don't want to see, and I think that's what we're really seeing through all of these chats. Obviously, there's ways to elevate the phone in the chats, but I think for sure for our children and even for ourselves, we really have to be very careful what we look at, because I really think that is part of our avodah of Shmiras Einayim. And even if all of the negative things, Baruch Hashem, I also have not seen any of them, but someone was describing, and he's like, I just can't get it out of my mind. And I said, okay, thank you. Stop describing. And I don't know what the answer is for you.
Affecting us. That's them getting to us, even though they hurt our brothers and sisters in Israel, but they're psychologically affecting us. The fact that some people can't sleep, they can't eat. Like,
I wasn't even referring to
Right.
graphic or anything too traumatic, but I'm
Right.
talking
the
about
positive
just
things.
like
We have to
Yeah.
limit ourselves. I mean, I
Yeah,
think that
limit,
comes
right.
to self-control. Like
Self-control,
we
yeah.
can't be on our phones all the time. I know for myself, I had to one day. I literally left my phones in a different room in my house, and I just sat on my couch reading books to my children, and I felt like
Wow.
I felt guilty that I wasn't checking, but I felt so liberated because it was just a way. And the simcha that my children felt from knowing that like I wasn't looking for like what is the next thing, what is the next positive or negative thing that's going on. I think we just have to realize that like our phones, as amazing as they are a distraction. I know there's people who have Kabbalahs not to be on their phones, not to be on chats.
Right.
I'm not holding there. I need my phone for work. I feel like I need my phone for Jewish content.
Yeah.
I will say one thing we can do is elevate the devices. So like if you are going to go on to like, you know, the Art Scroll is giving away, was giving, I think still is giving Tehillim for free. Like go and say a parak of Tehillim, like have it be available. Oh, that's also another thing I did. It was just available. Like when I would stand in the elevator, I would be like, oh, let me just go on to my Tehillim thing and just say like a few psukim, not even prakim, a few psukim. I'm here. I have 2 seconds in the elevator. Like why not? And so then it didn't become so like laborious. It wasn't this like chore to say Tehillim. It just was there.
Something I noticed, another thing that I wanted to highlight actually is that the unity and the achdus that the Jewish people have now is like incredible. And now I feel, I mean, I've always felt proud to be a Jew, but like even more so now, I'm like, wow, I'm so lucky to be a Jewish lady. I'm so happy because look at everybody coming together. We're sending care packages. We're donating. We're giving tzedakah. Our kids are writing. My daughter wrote a beautiful letter and sent it in.
But not only that, like the in Israel for the longest time, I feel like there was a lot of like strife between the Chilonim and the Haredim, and now like you see them like davening together, dancing together, singing together, and that like us watching that even is like wow. Like it's so powerful, the unity and the achdus.
I mean, I think that's the message, right? That's the message that Hashem wants. He wants us as a to be together.
It doesn't matter how religious you are. It doesn't matter what you're wearing, how you dress, what level you're on. We're all brothers and sisters, and we just have to be there for each other.
Right. And I think we're all growing also on our own level. I think this is changing a lot of people. And I'm not saying religiously. I think that people are changing and we're growing together. I was called by a friend of mine who said, like, what are the religious people doing? Because, like, I need to do something. And, like, he was looking for, you know, a different way. And some people are, and we're all, that's like what you said earlier, Rena, like, we're all on the front lines of this battle, and we all have a different purpose. So for some people, it's writing letters to congressmen. For other people, it's saying Tehillim. For other people, it's making meals. For other people, it's
ripping up their clothes.
Right, ripping up their clothes and dressing more tzniusly, taking on another mitzvah as a shmirah. Like, we all, the unity is incredible, and I think we have to hang on to that and to recognize it. I know that
remember that, like, always. Like, that's something that also, growing up, I was very into, I feel like, is just, it doesn't matter what you look like. We are all, like, we're all siblings.
We're all one, yeah.
We're all one.
I think something that, like, I'm curious to know, I would love your advice on this, and Tippa and I were talking about it earlier this morning. How do we address this whole big catastrophic issue with our kids? Like, this is a huge thing, and we don't know how to navigate it. We've never been through something like this, Baruch Hashem, and our kids are asking, at least my kids, are your kids asking questions, Tikva?
My kids asked when we just found out, because me and my husband were both, like, basically crying, and they saw, like, what are they, like, you can't,
what's going on?
As a parent, like, how much can you hold your emotions inside, you know? They saw.
Right.
So they did ask.
Right. And my older kids have been obviously hearing things from other people in school. My son came home asking specific questions about things, from classmates that he heard. How do we address this? What do we tell our children?
I think each child depends on their own age. So, like, the way you're going to address a 4-year-old is very different than the way you're going to address a 14-year-old than a 16 or 18-year-old. So I think that's, like, to start out, I do not think this is a one-size-fits-all. And I think each child needs to be addressed individually, collectively, but also individually. Every child deals with things differently. Some people are information collectors. They just need to know what's going on. They want more news, more information. And others are the opposite. So some of it is knowing your child. Does your child want to know more about what's going on or not? I have one kid who said he was talking to his friend, and the friend said, no, you're wrong. It's this many people who are kidnapped instead of this many, and it was this many who died instead of this many. And so he came to me and he said, no, my friend said that I'm wrong and he's right. And I said, well, the real information, and this kid was actually like, no, don't tell me.
Wow.
I don't want to know.
Wow.
So each kid has to be.
Yeah, that's very much. How old was your?
He's 9.
That's very mature.
It's very mature. He's a very mature child.
Wow. And he's probably a sensitive boy.
He's very sensitive, and he didn't want to know. That it was like he was happy that his friend who had thought it was the numbers were less was right, and then when I told him actually he's wrong and we're wrong, it's unfortunately many more. So he was just like, it's too much. I don't want to know anymore. I don't want to know the details. So I think each child according to their own way, but just some general advice. I think we have to be honest with them and answer their questions. And if they're at an age when they're finding things out from their friends, I would rather be the bearer of bad news than for it to come from a friend. So when this was first coming out, one of my oldest child actually found out from his friend many more details in Shul. And then he came home after Marav after some Torah, and I was like, So I think we have to tell them, we have to answer their questions, and we have to anticipate what they're going to find out from their friends, if their friends have more or less technology, more or less access. I've told all my kids very clearly they are absolutely on no uncertain terms to look at any pictures or videos from anybody other than me, even grandparents, cousins, aunts, because I again, Shmira Seinayim, but I also I want to be able to set those boundaries, and my boundaries may not be the same as my brother's boundaries or my parents. Even though the grandparents, they're with all good intentions, they're not the parents. So I think that's one. And then I think we have to really phrase what we say to our children through a language of bitachon and emunah. That Hashem runs the world, and Hashem is Shomer Yisrael. He guards Bnei Yisrael, and at every moment He's recreating the world. And nothing happens in this world without the hand of God. And that does not mean that it is not painful and tragic and hard. But if we can code it in this language of Emunah and Bitachon for our children, it really softens the blow.
Wow. My son came home a few days ago, and he shared an episode that he heard that happened, that Hamas did, Yimach Shemam, and he said, "Is it true?" And for me, it was like, do I lie to my 10-year-old? And I honestly don't even know if it's true. We just hear things. I didn't see anything, Baruch Hashem. My friends said that they saw things. I imagine it was true, but it was so hard for me to even address it, because it was such a horrific act that he said. And he looked at me with his eyes and he was like, "Tell me it's not true. It's not true, right? It's not true." And I said, "All we can do is daven. I don't know what's true. I don't know what's not true." And that Shabbos, he pulled out a Sefer Tehillim and he sat my entire family down. I'm getting the chills. I'm getting so emotional. Wow. And he said, "Ima, you're saying this kapitel. Abba, you're saying this kapitel." And we finished the entire Sefer Tehillim with a 10-year-old boy. He's such a sweet boy. I can't even tell you, he was so emotional throughout the whole thing. He completed the most of it on his own, but he designated, my 7-year-old was saying, my 5-year-old was repeating after me. It was so sweet, but it was so nice to see that our kids are taking this also in such a sensitive way, and also getting closer to Hashem, because they've never seen something. We've never seen anything like this. Yeah. So I think that you also have
to realize that Hashem, we've never experienced it, Baruch Hashem, in our lifetimes. Yeah. But this is not the first machla that Bnei Yisrael has gone through, from Mitzrayim, all the way till today. Right. We're probably the first generation that didn't experience something directly.
Right. I think what's a little scary is that, someone was telling me, I said, "Oh, this is Nazis." I called them Nazis. And they're like, no. Nazis never harmed themselves. They were careful about themselves. But Hamas, they use their kids as human shields. Yeah. This is a different level of cruelty. Okay, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole.
Say they're barbarians.
But yeah, they're barbarians, and that's it. But I think that there's so much to learn just from the Achdus, and from I feel like Klal Yisrael has now stepped up to a whole new level. We're all really in this together. Imo Anochi B'Tzara, we're all so sad. Nobody can think of anything else throughout their day besides for what's going on. What are the hostages going through? When will they get back? Our mind is so busy with all this stuff. Are there any last parting words that you have? Any advice for us?
So a few things I want to say as this is going to go on, and please God, it should end quickly in a moment. Hashem can make things end in a moment, and I hope this ends quickly and we have the Geula Shalema immediately. But if this does continue, I think we have to strengthen ourselves that we want to continue to stay connected. And as the news is going to eventually, this is just going to be passé and old news, and it's not going to be on the news anymore, and we have to just remember that as Klal Yisrael, this achdus that we're feeling now, and whatever steps we're taking now, we are going to continue to be on the front lines of this battle with Amalek, and this battle that's going on in Eretz Yisrael right now. Anyone should take on whatever mitzvah they can, whether it's tefillah, whether it's tzedakah, whether it's tshuva, whether it's chesed, and to just do it with intention. I think that we should, as women or as whomever's listening to the podcast, take on tefillah. I think Hashem has to hear our words, especially when we're not physically on the front lines. We're all on the front lines of this battle. We're all fighting it, each on our own front, whether it's in the workplace, in the community, politically, or just in our homes with our families and our children.
And I'm sure you see Yad Hashem every day with your work.
Yeah, but it's an awareness. It's in order to see Yad Hashem in your life, to see Hashgacha Pratis, you have to be looking for it. You have to know Hashem is in your life to be able to see Him in your life. I heard something from the Chaylim. Maybe this is where would be my parting words, is that they said that when they go into battle, they see that Hashem is helping them at every step of their battle. When they came back, they were able to just say that clearly. And I think if we can, in our small way here in Los Angeles and outside of Israel, be able to see Hashem in our life and to create that relationship with Him and with other Jewish people, call somebody you wouldn't normally speak to, make shalom with someone who you haven't spoken to for a long time, just to realize that we're all part of the same nation and that we all are hoping and praying for the safety of each other, I think is really what we need to do.
That was so
Thank you
beautiful.
so much. Thank you, Dr. Shelley, for taking your time and coming on our podcast. And thank you, everyone, for listening.
Yes, until next episode.
Thanks for tuning in to our Mommy Life Squad podcast.
And stay tuned for the next episode.